On today's episode, you're going to discover the secret of selling anything. Plus, I'll show you how to get almost anyone to do what you want, but without using sleazy tactics and in a way that will actually make them happy, and the number one thing people do wrong when they're trying to be persuasive. My name is Henry Bingaman. This is Getting Out of the Machine. Hey, welcome back. This is Getting Out of the Machine. This is going to be a very valuable episode for a lot of people because I'm going to talk about the secret of selling anything. Now, this is a big reason why I was able to sell over $300 million worth of products for my clients. Now, you might be thinking, hey, Henry, I'm not in sales, so I'm just going to skip this episode. Wait right there. That would be a mistake. See, we're all in sales. Really, this is about getting what you want. If you want your toddler to eat his broccoli, you have to sell him on it. If you want to get somebody to date you or marry you, you have to sell them on yourself. Even when you're buying something, if it's something you can negotiate the price on, like a house or a car, you're in the business of sales. Anytime you want somebody to take an action, that is sales. And here's the thing, everybody loves a good salesperson. Now, I know that can sound kind of counterintuitive. I think that's because most people think of bad salespeople when they think of salespeople. A bad salesperson is loud, pushy, in your face, uses high-pressure tactics and tricks, and thinks of himself as really slick when he's just being creepy. Nobody actually wants to deal with those types of salespeople. A good salesperson, on the other hand, doesn't feel like he or she is selling you at all. They feel like they're on your side, helping you get what you want. Now, I remember hearing about a guy who was the self-proclaimed world's best salesman. And he went on Johnny Carson's Tonight Show back in the 70s. Now, I've looked for the clip, but I can't find it, so I'm not sure this actually happened. But even if it's not true, it's a good story. Johnny says to this guy, all right, you say you're the world's best salesman. Sell me something. Salesman says, no guarantees, Johnny, but I'll do my best. What do you want me to sell you? Johnny looks around, and he's trying to find something, and he says, oh, how about that ashtray? This is back in the 70s when people could actually smoke on these shows. This ashtray, Johnny, the sales guy says, well, all right, what do you like about it? Johnny says, well, it's, a good size for the table and it matches the rest of the set. And the salesman says, that sounds pretty good. Has it been useful to have this ashtray here? Johnny says, well, all right, sometimes I have guests on, then they get nervous, and if I let them smoke, I get a better interview. So yeah, it's been very useful. All right, the salesman says, so this ashtray matches your decor, and having it here helps put your guests at ease and makes your show better. So how much would you be willing to pay for an ashtray like this? Johnny says, I don't know, maybe $5. All right, the salesman says, you got a deal. Now, I love that story. Most people see it as just a late night show gag, and it was probably set up if it happened at all. But it's actually very instructive as a lesson in selling. You can only sell people something that they want, and when they want something, they generally tell you how to sell it to them. Now, I told you I was going to talk about the secret of selling anything. So, what is it? Well, I'm sorry that I did this to you, but the secret of selling anything is the title of a book by Harry Brown. The subtitle is A Roadmap to Success for the Salesman Who is Not Aggressive, Who is Not a Smooth Talker, and Who is Not an Extrovert. It's one of two books I almost always recommend to anybody starting a business or anyone entering any type of sales position in general. That's not because it's packed full of sales tips and tactics. In fact, the reason it's such a good book is because it teaches you why people buy anything in the first place. And that's not something a lot of people have stopped to think about. Here's the thing, most people don't understand how the world really works. And if you fundamentally misunderstand how the world works, you're going to be less effective at everything than you otherwise could be. And that's what Harry Brown's book talks about. Now, why should you trust Harry Brown? Well, first, he had an extremely successful business career and then speaking career. And then he ran for president twice on the Libertarian ticket in 1996 and 2000. Now, I'm not a libertarian, mostly because I have no desire to defend that party's stance on repealing all child labor laws, getting rid of driver's licenses, fully opening the borders, or repealing the Civil Rights Act. It's not that I don't understand their arguments, but I mean, really, guys? That's what you want to talk about? We have a government that bombs people all over the world, criminalizes everything, and makes you pay for it with absurd taxes and inflating away your savings. And now we know that they can shut down your business and lock you in your house whenever they decide there's an emergency. So when libertarians start making their case for some of those obscure points, to me it's like trying to sell an air conditioner to a homeless dude. Sure, air conditioning is great, but it's worse than useless until you get him a roof and four walls, a window, electricity, and probably a good source of income. Just get your priorities straight, guys. Now, luckily, Harry Brown was a guy with his priorities straight. So that's because he's practical. One of his other really exceptional books is called How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World. And that general premise is what I've modeled this whole podcast on. In it, he makes the point that, yes, the government puts you in a box in some ways with laws and regulations, but a lot of the freedom you've lost is simply because you believe things that aren't true. That's both profound, but also a very practical realization. And it's profound because it's practical. So, what are some beliefs that are reducing people's freedom? The belief that you need a job because that's how it's done, or because you need health insurance. The belief that there's some shadowy group of rich people who are screwing you. The belief that you can't be free until everyone in society is perfectly free. The belief that any politician is putting your interests above their interests. Spoiler alert, they're not. A politician, like anyone, always puts his or her own interests first, every time without exception. If you believe otherwise, they've just lied to you very convincingly. Now, I'm sure I can find somebody to argue with me on any of those points. Of course, they'd be dead wrong, but there are people who can make very sophisticated and bad arguments. But again, the proof is in the practicality. If it works, it works. Once you give up these false beliefs, the beliefs that are holding you back, your life becomes infinitely easier to understand. And on balance, given enough time, it becomes much better. Now, I'm not promising overnight wealth or success or happiness. That's not how any of this works. There's a famous quote from Hemingway. The quote goes, "How did you go bankrupt? 2 ways, gradually, then suddenly." Now, that's a witty statement, and it's true, but it also works in reverse. If you ask anyone how they got wealthy, and you can get them to give you an honest answer, it's the same thing. The answer is gradually, then suddenly. And that's true for everything you really want in life. It takes time to work enough on yourself to become the type of person worth paying hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to every year. Or to be respected and valued in a relationship, or just to be the type of person worth listening to. So, without further ado, let's talk about some of the top takeaways of the secret to selling anything. The first thing that I think everyone should understand that Harry Brown convincingly demonstrates is the concept of value. He does this by laying out 3 laws of human nature. First, all individuals seek happiness. Second, happiness is relative. And third, resources are limited. Now, what do those 3 rules have to do with understanding the concept of value? Well, everything. Those 3 laws are critical to understand. First, you're always dealing with individuals. They may form into groups out of necessity or convenience, but when you boil it down, only an individual can make a decision or take an action. And every decision and every action an individual takes is designed to increase his own happiness or avoid unhappiness. Now, I could be nitpicky and say that maybe happiness isn't the exact right word. Maybe it's more satisfaction or fulfillment or contentment, but whatever. It all boils down to the same thing. The only reason that anyone does anything is because it improves their personal material, physical, or emotional state. There's not a single exception. There's literally no other reason to do anything. Now, that's pretty obvious when you buy something. If you buy something, you buy it because you wanted it. You wanted it because at the end of the day, you thought it would make you happier or help you avoid losing some amount of happiness that you already had. But even if you take the example of giving money to charity or doing something for another person that has no possible direct benefit to you, yeah, you still did it for your own happiness. For whatever reason, you thought that taking that action was better for you than not taking that action. Because in that case, it makes you happier to be the kind of person that helps others instead of being the kind of person who is selfish and hoards all their money or whatever you imagine the counter of your being is. But it's still about you at the end of the day. It's about your identity. It's about how you feel about yourself. You're doing it because you want to feel better about yourself. Now, that brings us to the second law. Happiness is relative. What makes you happy does not perfectly overlap with what makes other people happy. It doesn't overlap with what makes me happy. And that's fine. That's great. If you asked 100 people what their favorite food was, you'd get close to 100 answers. And that's kind of a silly example, but there's no issue where that's not true. On an individual basis, people have different likes, desires, and needs. Individuals want different things. They like different things, and they think different things will make them happy. Now, we're often wrong about what will make us happy. There's been a lot of times in everybody's life where we got in a relationship, or we voted for a candidate, or we bought some product with the knowledge that we had at the time that we thought was the best thing to do, only to realize a few weeks or months or years later that this was a terrible mistake. But at the time, we took that action because we thought it would make us happier. Now, this idea that happiness is relative, that happiness is defined by each individual in their own way, is so crucial to sales that it really can't be overstated. In fact, it's crucial to life. It's crucial to understand that people are different from you. It used to be... No, actually, I'm going to disagree with myself in the middle of a podcast. I was going to say that it used to be that people understood we were all different, which is why people didn't hate each other so much for different political opinions. But I actually don't think that's true. I think the internet has just let us all see exactly how much we disagree with each other on what brings us happiness. And the media has people trained to think that if you disagree with someone, it has to be a moral issue, that if they're not on board with your agenda, they're a bad person. But all right, 2 laws of human nature down. So still nothing about value, right? Well, here's where it all comes together. The third law of human nature is that resources are limited. Obviously, you know that not a single person on the planet has unlimited resources. Not even Elon Musk, who at the time of this recording is trying to buy Twitter for $44 billion. Not even Elon has unlimited resources. And this gets us to value. If you have limited resources, time, money, effort, you have to trade things. And as soon as you start recognizing that you have to trade things, you've established that you value one thing more than another. If you pay rent or a mortgage, you value having that place to live more than you value having that money. Now, of course, you wish the costs were lower. In your ideal world, in everybody's ideal world, you'd have both the place to stay and all the money that it costs to stay there. But you simply wouldn't pay the money if it wasn't worth it for you to live in that place. Same thing's true if you buy a $200 pair of sneakers. You simply would not spend $200 if you didn't think the shoes were worth more than $200. And you probably value them because of the status they give you. Of course, you may be wrong. We're all wrong all the time about all kinds of different things. But at the moment you swipe your credit card or you fork over the cash, you are expressing what you value the most. Again, you may not find the terms of any deal ideal or perfect. You may think somebody's taking advantage of you, but there's no case in which you give somebody something in order to receive something else where you feel like your life wouldn't have been better if you didn't do it. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. The reason this is so important to understand is because many, if not most, people have guilt over what they charge their customers. This is absolutely nonsensical. When you do this, what you're actually saying is, I value my identity as somebody this person likes more than the money I'm getting from them. But here's the thing. If you're getting people to pay you what you're asking, and you're telling them the truth about what you're giving them, that's a big point, then the only reason they're paying you is because they believe that the thing you're offering will provide more happiness than keeping the money for themselves. This is an absolute rule. It's unavoidable. You cannot charge people more than they're willing to pay. Now, I've worked with a lot of copywriters and marketers who thought their customers were stupid. They literally couldn't believe that they could get these saps to pay $2,000 a year for this stock trading service or whatever the example was. But the fact is, these customers aren't stupid. They're just different from you. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe you're wrong. But if you're telling them the truth and honestly representing your product, then let the frickin' people decide what they want. And this is the next lesson from the secrets of selling anything that I want people to understand. In a good faith transaction, everyone profits. So what is profit? It's conventionally understood as the difference between what you paid and what you received. But that's not actually right. Profit is when you give up something to get something that you value more. This is such a crucial point to understand, and nobody gets it. If you're being honest and the exchange is made honestly and in good faith, every sale is a double profit. You profit and your customer profits. Or if you're the buyer, you profit and the person you're buying from profits. Look, if I wanted to sell, if I wanted to sell you a handmade coffee table, woodworking is a hobby of mine, so that's something that could happen. If I wanted to sell a coffee table, I'm factoring in the cost of the wood and my time, and I probably want to make some type of profit for the hours I spent building it. So let's say I'm going to charge $400. Now, if you're tight on cash, there's no frickin' way you're buying a custom-made coffee table for $400. You can get something at Target, which, it won't last as long, but it'll do the same thing for $20. So for you, buying a custom coffee table that holds up for 100 years, it's just not worth it. But let's say you're a billionaire. You're Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or, pick your favorite rich dude. It would be embarrassing for you to have a Target coffee table in your living room. It wouldn't be congruent with the billionaire image you put out to the world. So you would pay thousands of dollars for a coffee table because that money isn't important to you. The happiness you get in being able to tell people or for people to see that you can afford nice things and multi-$1,000 coffee tables, well, that's what's worth it to you. That's your value. As long as transactions are voluntary and honest, both sides profit. Here's another more personal example. So I charge $1,000 an hour for consulting. And all I do really is figure out where business owners are losing money and where they have the opportunities to make more money. Then I help them fix those problems or implement the new strategies to profit more. Now, in that example, I profit to the tune of $1,000 an hour. And you could argue that I'm making $1,000 an hour just for talking. But the business owners wouldn't pay me that money if I weren't making them absurdly more money than they're giving me. Look, if your business is making $1 million a year, and I can help you tweak your marketing and your messaging so you start making $1.2 million a year, nobody's mad that they paid me $2,000 or $10,000 to make them an extra $200,000 a year indefinitely. Both sides profit. Everybody wins. And even if it's something as basic as buying a car, and even if it's something far removed from me, something as basic as buying a car, look, we'd all love to get a free car. But again, we all have limited resources. So we all instinctively know that we have to give up something to get something. So let's say I have a 2005 pickup and you have $5,000. The only possible way for me to sell you this pickup is if you value the truck more than you value the $5,000 I'm asking. And the only reason I'd give you the pickup for $5,000 is because I value that money more than the pickup. When markets are actually free, everybody profits on every transaction. And look, even if they feel like they should have profited more, they still profited. This is the most important lesson you could ever learn in sales. You only profit when you help other people profit. Now, I think Harry Brown does a better job laying this out than I do. His examples are from the 60s, so it's kind of funny to hear him say things like, well, obviously the customer would never pay over $10,000 for a car. But the principles he's addressing are universal and timeless. So I want to quickly cover two more of them. And I'm going to read a pretty long quote from the book through the next point. All right, ready? Harry Brown says, there is such a thing as the, quote, secret of success. There is a way to take your life out of the realm of luck and control your own future. There is a method by which you can obtain the things you want in this world. All you have to do is make it your business to find out what people want instead of assuming it, instead of telling them. The one rule that sums up the job to be done, the one formula that is fully in harmony with the real world, the secret of success is find out what people want and help them get it. Now, I've written over 100 sales letters and I've sold hundreds of millions of dollars worth of products. One of the reasons I've been able to do that is that I'm really good at intuiting what people want and putting that into a sales form. Some of that comes from my personal life experience, and some of it comes from almost a decade and a half of selling to just similar groups of customers. But I only have one promotion that I've ever done that's done over $100 million in sales from the same funnel. And most of the sales funnels I've worked on have been primarily focused on selling to men. This exercise programs or supplements or investing stuff. For whatever reason, men tended to be the primary customers in those areas. But the audience for this product was primarily female. So I had to do a ton of research. That means spending time in women's forums, online, reading books written for women, but it also meant interviewing a ton of women in that target market and hoping they'd open up to me about some very personal and normally very private problems. Do you want to know an amazing fact? If you ask someone about their problems with the clear objective of helping them find a solution, people will tell you everything. I was mind blown at some of the incredibly personal and somewhat hilarious problems that these women were facing. Now, obviously, it wasn't hilarious to them, but their retelling of it was quite humorous. The point is, if you ask somebody about their problems, they'll tell you anything you want. They'll tell you about their problems in so much detail that you'll have trouble trying to get them to stop talking. There's just nothing people like more than talking about their own problems and the reasons they're unhappy. If you have customers, or if you have a girlfriend, boyfriend, or spouse, or child, they will happily and willingly talk about their problems until you can't stand to listen to it anymore. And if you can solve their problems, if you can make them happier, they will shower you with love and money for doing it. Again and again, I have to preach this. People exchange value for value. So if you value money, you can have as much as you want if you can provide what other people value more than money. Okay, final point of the secret of selling anything that I want to touch on. And I'm going to do it by reading another quote from the book. This is Harry Brown again. The world you're about to enter is the real world, and you'll never have to leave the real world to find success. It isn't a long book because there isn't that much to understand. And this is true. This is the depiction of reality that most people have never seen or even knew that was there to be seen. So in conclusion, I'm going to encourage you to go buy the book. It's less than $10. You can get it on Amazon, or you can go to Harry Brown's website and buy it directly from him. And I made a quick temporary link to help you get there. It's not an affiliate link or anything. I just really think you should have the book. So go to henryb.co/Harry. That's henryb.co/HARRY. And make sure you're subscribed to the show and hopefully leave a 5-star review and rating on Apple or Spotify. Because next week, the episode that I'm going to release is going to blow your mind. All right, I'll talk to you then.